I'm not catching him. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the History of Bodybuilding. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined, as always, by John Hansen. And today we're going to be talking history of the Arnold Classic, especially considering that this weekend is our Arnold Classic. John, you know, the first Arnold Classic champion of all was our good friend Rich Gaspari, 1989. Yep. Holy mac! How many years are we at now?
35. This is the 35th year.
Unbelievable, and still going strong.
Crazy. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Aside from the 1 year that Arnold held it in September which will forever be known as the COVID years, right? It's gone off without a hitch. You know, every March.
Yeah.
You know, since '89.
I was looking over the list of the winners, and man, it was really an all-star lineup of bodybuilders from the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. You know, it's the second biggest bodybuilding title, and it stayed consistent, like you said, throughout all the years. And we've had some great battles, some great champions, some great competitions. And every year in March, this is like the biggest contest, or the second biggest contest of the year.
It's really amazing when you think about how exciting people get, because, you know, usually the winter months are kind of dead as far as competitions go. It doesn't really get started until around April, but the Arnold every year kind of gets us started, and it gets us excited. It used to be the Ironman was like a week or two before the Arnold, and they did away with that. But so the Arnold is really the first big men's open event of the year. And it never seems to disappoint. You know, this year looked like it could have been a disaster, and then Arnold pulled that $300,000 first place prize money out of the clear blue sky, and all of a sudden everyone came, and we have a great lineup. We're going to be doing seeing some of the top guys, obviously, in the sport competing with the side of Hadi Chupin won't be there, and Derek Lunsford, but everyone else in that Olympia lineup, from Big Ramy, two-time defending Mr. Olympia. We have William Bonac, who's looking to make a comeback of sorts after a bad appearance in the Arnold. We have Nick Walker, who's on a seriously high. He's already a one-time Arnold Classic champion. We have the 212 Olympia champ, Sean Clarita, jumping up to the Open, possibly staying in the Open class. Andrew Jack, who's probably one of the most exciting new bodybuilders on the scene, working with Chris Aceto now coming into this lineup. Samson Dowda. It seems like it's going to be a tough show.
Yeah, and this is how it's always been. You know, it's usually whoever does well at the Arnold goes to whoever does well at the Olympia does well at the Arnold, and they go into the Arnold with all that momentum that they created from the Olympia. We've seen a lot of guys who took second or third at the Olympia, then they go to the Arnold, and then they win, and that's a huge competition for their career. Sometimes it ends up being the highlight of their career, as it did with like Mike Francois and some of the other guys who never won the Olympia. But going from that momentum from the Olympia to the Arnold is that's why it's great that they're only like 6 months apart. And it always builds, you know, you always get a lot of great, exciting competitors because of who was in the Olympia.
Or in this case, 8 weeks apart.
Yeah, right. This is an unusual year for sure.
Yeah, with the Olympia being so late in the year. Let's talk about some of the. First of all, who was the winningest Arnold US? Now there's a lot of Arnolds throughout the world. Now we're going to stick to the Arnold USA. Dexter Jackson won the most, right, with 5.
Yeah, Dexter won 5, and he beat Flex's record of 4. So, and then after that, Jay and Kai both won 3, and Kevin Levrone, Branch Warren, William Bonac, and Brandon Curry all won 2.
Yeah, so there's a lot of guys. It seems like that 3. You can win 3. You're in rarefied air, so to speak. Because you know what it is. It's hard to do basically every single year. You know, especially when you're vying for an Olympia title, to have to go and try to like do the Arnold too. It's tough. You know, and like Jay only did it 3 times. He probably could have won 3 more if he wanted to.
Yeah, Jay won 3 in a row too, which is pretty notable. And then I remember he said, just like what you just implied, he said, I can't do both and be at my best for the Olympia. So then in 2005, he said, I'm only going to do the Olympia. And he ended up getting second again. But then he finally did beat Ronnie in 2006.
Yeah. Dexter has to be considered the GOAT here because, I mean, to win 5 Arnolds.
Yeah.
And I believe, didn't he have a couple of second places in there too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, quite a few second places, yeah.
Yeah. But he won 5. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Over the span of most people's career, that would be unheard of because a lot of people, many people don't compete more than 5 or 6 or 7 years. He won 5 Arnolds alone,
And they were spread apart too, Dave. His first 2 were in 2005 and 6, and then he won in 08, and then he didn't win another one until 13 and 15. So, that's pretty impressive that he was able to sustain that condition for so long. And, he's an unbelievable bodybuilder with the career he had, being able to compete as long as he did,
And let's talk about 08. I mean, 08 was a great year for Dexter, right? He won the Olympia, he won the Arnold.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize is he beat Phil Heath, who was second, and Kai Greene, who was third, and Branch Warren, who was fourth at that show. That's a crazy, crazy lineup,
Yeah, that was definitely one of the better years for sure.
I mean,
and Brandon Curry did the same thing. The year he won the Arnold, he also won the Olympia. So that's
right. But look at that lineup of who Dexter beat.
Yeah.
That I mean, those names alone are all legends, in a sense.
Yeah.
These are guys that went on. I mean, Kai Greene and Phil Heath are 2 of the best ever to do it. And Dexter beat them at the Arnold in 08. And they were good then. They were on the rise, obviously. They weren't at the peak of their powers, but they were still really good at that show.
Yeah. And Phil Heath never won the Arnold. He tried a couple of times. He got second a couple of times, but he never won.
That's true. And you know what? I feel like he should have won. And you know what year I'm thinking?
2010.
Yeah. I didn't think that Kai was that good in 10. And that was Kai's second win. I don't know if they just kind of threw him a bone here, but Phil was off the chart. I thought maybe that might have been his best look ever,
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. And speaking of best looks ever, I mean, Kai was unbelievable the year before in 2009. Remember how shredded he was?
Yeah. And do you remember in 09 when Kai, I believe it was 09 when didn't he fall off the treadmill when he was like getting ready for that show? I don't know if he fell asleep or he was so exhausted he fell off, but the treadmill threw him off. And this is a true story. And he was, because he always had to create drama before the show, and people didn't know if he was going to make it to the show. And of course, he looked amazing at that show. I don't know if it was 10 or if it was 09. I'm not sure which one.
Well, in 09, he was really shredded because I remember they kept saying, if he could only achieve that look at the Olympia, he could probably win the Olympia, and he never could. And that's another thing, Dave. We had a lot of guys who would go into the Arnold looking unbelievable, looking their best, but by the time they got to the Olympia, they weren't as good. Flex Wheeler was one of them.
Yep.
And
Cedric McMillan.
Yeah.
Cedric more than anyone.
Yeah.
The Arnold was his Olympia.
Yeah. But Flex would do that too. Flex would compete in both, and he would always look better in the spring than he would in the fall. He never quite got it together for the Olympia. I don't know if it was a mental thing or if it was just physical from trying to compete twice in 1 year.
I think with Flex, it was that he didn't like the diet, and he would get to a point where he just didn't want to give 100% anymore. I think I have footage here from the Arnold. Let's see if I got this. 2010, which I thought was a really, really good one. Phil Heath versus Kai Greene here.
Okay.
Remember, Kai wins this show, but I really believe that Phil was probably the best person here. There's Branch Warren, Ronnie Raquel, Dexter. A lot of people realize Dexter was in all these, even though he didn't win, he was in all these shows and he was right there. He was always. Dexter was 4th this year. Branch was 3rd here.
Okay. Yeah, Branch looks huge.
Yeah.
And that was the year that Phil got 2nd to Jay at the Olympia. And a lot of people, including myself, thought he should have won.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But I think that he should have won this show too. Kai was huge here, but I don't think he was as shredded as he was in 09.
09. Yeah, I agree.
But this was like a foreshadowing of the battles that Phil and Kai would have for years to come after this. Because I don't know if I don't think Kai ever beat Phil after this show, right?
Probably not, no, because Phil started winning the Olympia the next year.
Right.
Yeah, probably not.
This was the last time that Phil lost to Kai. I almost think, like I said, I think Kai got a gift on this one, no pun intended, but he was really good. But Phil was really good here. Kai was a little bigger than him. If you want to go play size game,
yeah,
Kai was bigger. But Phil was never the biggest guy on stage, so throughout his entire career.
What was the year that Phil won the Ironman? He was in great shape on that one.
Yeah, that was like his first win, right? Something like that.
Yeah, his first big win. I think he won that Colorado show first.
Yeah. Did he win it this year? That he did the Arnold?
Maybe.
Or maybe it was 08. I think it was 08, right?
Yeah,
before Dexter beat him.
So he got 2nd at the Arnold that year, right? In 08. So he won the Ironman and then got 2nd at the Arnold at Dexter.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so here's the question, John Hansen. Who was the best Arnold Classic champion of all time?
Wow, that's a good one.
At the Arnold, we're talking. I'm not talking about the best bodybuilders ever, because Ronnie, that might be your answer right there. Ronnie 02 might have been the best Arnold champion of all time, right?
Well, I used to say it was Flex in 93, the first year he won.
Yeah.
But I could also make an argument that Ronnie in 2001.
Or 2001, excuse me. I said 2, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ronnie wanted to win Ronnie didn't even go there for the money. He wanted to win the Hummer.
Hummer.
Yeah.
And Ronnie I think Ronnie was the only guy at least up to that point, who was a Mr. Olympia winner who went into the Arnold Classic.
Yeah. Oh, the Arnold people must have loved that they got Ronnie into that show.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Nobody else after winning the Olympia went back, except for Brandon did. Brandon Curry went back last year.
Yes. Oh, that's true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're right. But Ronnie was a reigning Mr. Olympia who did that.
He was the reigning, right. And it almost cost him the title that year because he almost lost to Jay later in the year. True.
But he got the Hummer. There he is.
And at that show, he was amazing. He was incredible.
Look at how shredded he is. Look at those glutes.
Yeah. I was at that show and he just walked away with it. There was nobody close to him.
Yeah. He when Ronnie put his mind to doing something, he did it, and that's people don't realize this is the backstage footage. Look at Ronnie's back development there.
Yeah, look at
the lower lat insertions right there.
Yeah.
That's from crazy hardcore training that he did.
Yeah. The thickness of his lumbar region was unbelievable.
I mean, he didn't have any weaknesses, Ronnie, really. I mean, when you think about it.
Right.
We'll never see. I don't know if we'll ever see another guy like that again, because you know what? And we made that point. Chris Cedar and I were talking about this. Ronnie had the training intensity, and Chad mentioned this too the other day when he was being interviewed. Ronnie had that training intensity like that no one else had, and he had genetics on top of that.
Yeah.
Which is a deadly combination when you think about it.
Yeah, and the thing that was great about Ronnie was he just loved bodybuilding so much. He loved training. I mean, he just loved being in the gym. He loved training heavy. And I think that's why he became such a fan favorite when he did that first video. You could just see the love he had for what he did. It was genuine. And I think that's why people liked him so much. He was just a hardcore guy who just loved training.
If you had to pick the best 90s Arnold champion, which would be the first 10 years of the show, essentially.
Yeah.
Who would you say? Who would you say? Would we have to go with Flex Wheeler on that, or did Levrone maybe earn that accolade in '96?
Yeah, I would go between those two. Flex was just so perfect in '93, though. He was just, his skin was so tight. I mean, he was just unbelievable. He didn't weigh that much, but he was just perfection. He was just coming off of that was his first year as a pro. He just won the Ironman the week before. He won the USA the summer before, and he just looked fantastic. I mean, I think that's the epitome of what a bodybuilder should look like. But Levrone was great in '96. He was really thick in '96, thicker than he'd ever been, and he was still hard. So that was both of those guys were fantastic. And a lot of people felt Flex was better even in '98 because he was bigger. Flex got bigger later in his career. When he first started, he was much bigger in like '98, '99, 2000 than he was in the early '90s. And a lot of people like that look better. But I think just '93, I think he was perfect.
Well, you're very consistent because I'm going to pull up an image here from you. I found on the internet. 1993 Flex Wheel, the best Arnold champ ever.
You're right.
But I mean, if you look at it, I mean, look at that waistline. He had. Right. I don't think Flex ever had glutes like that the rest of his career. That was like probably the best when he won the USA and when he won this Arnold. Probably the best conditioning he ever had.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think he just was suffering more at this point because he had something to prove and he really hadn't made it yet? Or do you think his body just changed, I
think his body changed because he got a lot bigger, probably like 20 pounds heavier. So maybe that affected his ability to get those cuts in the glutes.
I don't know.
Levrone was like that.
It didn't affect Ronnie.
Yeah.
I think Flex just didn't diet as hard after that. I don't know. Maybe he didn't want it as bad because he was making good money now. At this point, he still was trying to, make it in bodybuilding and earn a living from it.
Yeah.
He was hungrier, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. He was very hungry. And he didn't know what he was getting into going into the pros. He was getting a lot of praise from people, but he hadn't proved himself. And then when he went into those, I think he won his first 3 shows. He won the Ironman, he won the Arnold, and I think there was another show after that he won. And I think after that, people were just like, oh, my God, this guy's amazing. And then you're right. He might have took his foot off the gas a little bit over the next few years because he started to believe all his hype.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he would have been Mr. Olympia had he kept that. If he would have had that same hunger and that same drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would have beat Ronnie probably. I think, at that '98 Olympia, and he would have probably gone on to win 8 Olympias like Ronnie did, assuming his health. Well, if his health, I don't know. He had that autoimmune kidney disease. So, I mean, that might have gotten to him before that, but I don't remember what year what was his last year?
In the Olympia?
Yeah. Competing. Was it like it was 0 something, right? 03 or something like that? 02?
04, I think. I think it was 04.
All right. So he could have ostensibly won, 4 or 5 Olympias,
Yeah. Well, he was heavily favored in '98 and he was winning until the very last round. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Yeah.
But he was so far ahead of Ronnie after that first round in the '98 Olympia that Ronnie had to win every round after that in order to catch up. And Ronnie just beat him in the pose down. So back then they would score every round. They would score the first round, the symmetry round, the second round, which is the mandatory poses, the third round, which was the posing. And Ronnie got progressively better throughout the day, and he looked much better at night as well. And then Ronnie just really barely beat him. I mean, it was very close.
Yeah. Who knows exactly how those scorecards really work. I'm always of the idea that the last impression is the score that counts. And then they go back and figure the scores out to make it work right. But I thought Ronnie was the deserved winner of that show because I didn't feel that Flex was in the level of condition that Ronnie was in, and that's why he lost. Because Ronnie wasn't as big as he was in later years, but he was ridiculously conditioned. I mean, nuts.
Right. Especially in the glutes and the lower back, and
that's where Flex lacked. Yeah. So,
do you remember that those pictures from the '98 Olympia, Dave, where Flex is like being a little cocky and he's looking at Ronnie's glutes before they hit the rear double bicep, and then Ronnie hit the rear double bicep?
Yeah.
I remember Peter McGuff, when he wrote his article for Flex, he said it's like being in a heavyweight championship fight and putting your hands down and letting the champ knock you out, you know?
I don't think Flex knew how good Ronnie was. That's why.
No.
Because Ronnie's deceptive, just standing there. You know what I mean? No one really was expecting Ronnie to be that good. So, he kind of caught everyone by surprise. He wasn't on. Everyone was thinking Nasser and Levrone and Flex and.
Well, you know what it was? It was Dorian had quit, so everybody looked at who took second to Dorian during Dorian's reign. And that was Nasser, Sean Ray, Kevin Levrone, and Flex. So they figured it was going to be one of those three, or one of those four. And then Flex had won the Arnold that year, and he looked fantastic. Right. So everybody said, "Oh, Flex is going to get it." But Ronnie did win the Night of the Champions over Kevin
Levrone.
So he should have been on everybody's radar,
When I saw him at that Night of Champions, I knew these guys were in trouble. I was there. I went out to eat with
saw that? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I saw him, and I remember I went out to eat after with Dr. Scott Conley, who was at the time was Ronnie's sponsor. He goes, "Man, after what Ronnie looked like on that stage," he goes, "I'm sure Joe Weider's got him in a bed, dripping water on his head, trying to brainwash him into switching and working for him." He's like, "There's no way I'm going to keep that guy." He goes, "This guy's going to win the Olympia." I said, "You think so, Scott?" He's like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And Scott paid him a lot of money to try to keep him under contract. I think he was still under contract through the Olympia. And then Weider got him.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. Those were amazing times. Now, going back to 1994, that was the year that Levrone won his first Arnold. And Paul Dillett looked really great that year. And I remember that was the year that he cramped, right? Almost died on stage. Actually, John Romano was responsible for that.
Literally carry him off stage.
And he's a big guy. If you got to carry someone off stage, he's not the guy you want to have to carry off.
Right.
I mean,
they needed 4 guys to carry him off stage.
Yeah. He's a little on the, that's the guy he's the last guy you want. It's like carrying Frankenstein off stage,
Yeah. Yeah, so it ended up being really close between Levrone and Vince Taylor. And Vince had won it.
Peter McGuff actually wrote a really good article about this back in, I think it was 2017.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Can you see it on the screen? Is it on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was Dillett, with the way he looked, I guess, at the prejudging. And then there he is when he cramps. You can see his abs went into a vicious cramp.
Yeah. Right.
And then he fell. I think this was before he fell or was going to his knees. And then that's him backstage to try to massage out his ab cramp. So
they said he would have won if he would have finished the show.
Yeah, I don't know. Levrone was such a good poser though, and Levrone looked really good at that show. Dillett's problem was that he had the best physique on stage, but he never knew how to really show it off, and I think that always hurt him.
Yeah, that was Levrone's first win after tearing his pec the year before.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
That was absolutely a big win for him. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge comeback for him. A lot of people thought he would never be able to come back after that pec tear out either. And
he actually came back that same year because he got second at the '92 Olympia, and then I think he tore his pec in January or something, and then he competed in the Olympia later that year in September.
Yep. Yeah, he was. But Levrone was a crazy, super responding freak. He could not train for 6, 8, 10 weeks and then come back and put all the size back on, in no time at all. So that's exactly what he did. But I thought personally the best battle between Levrone and Flex was at that 96 Arnold. Yeah. That to me was the closest, the two of them ever were. And, I helped Levrone for that show, and he really, he had me come down, and I really was not an unknown. I was an amateur at the time. I just won the junior nationals, and Kevin had seen me there and seen how good my conditioning was. And he's like, "Would you come down and help me?" And I'm thinking, this guy was the guy I'm looking up to. I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, sure. Why not? This is great." So, and when I went down there, and I've told the story before, when I saw him, I was just like, holy mackerel, this guy is at a whole different level than me, you know.
Yeah.
No way I'm ever going to beat this guy. And you know what? It was a very depressing, you know, thing to come to grips with it. His physique was in another level of well. And I was 300 pounds, a pretty solid 300 pounds, but at that point, you know, and this guy was retarded looking. I mean, the proportion and the way he was put together was just, it was like another human being. And so I'm like, man, and when I first, you know, saw pictures of him he had sent me pictures 12 weeks out. He looked like he didn't even work out. He looked like some guy from the gym. Then when I got there 6 weeks later, John, he had transformed. I mean, in 6 weeks, like from chump to champ. I mean, that's how crazy. And when I saw him, I said,
"Super responders ever."
Oh my God! Like I've never seen. I said, this guy will never be beaten. And I remember he didn't really know what he was doing. He was using some fake gear. He didn't even know it. And at that time, you had to be like Sherlock Holmes, because they would have like a lot of the gear. It wasn't underground. It was just fake. So they would have like fake labels, and they would just try to mimic what was already out there. So like Primabol and a Winstrol, you know, bottles would be, if the corners were, you know, like curved, you had to like know all the little things, and he didn't know anything. He just took whatever people gave him, you know. I said, Kevin, half the stuff you're using is fake, and he still looked that good. Yeah. The only thing he had that was good, he was using some real like Humatrope growth hormone, and I'm like, all right, change this, change that. And you know what? I actually had him use insulin, believe it or not, while he was dieting, because I just knew he was a genetic freak. I said, you know what? You're going to grow into this, because he wanted to be bigger. And I said, well, let's try this.
He was much bigger in 96 than he was in 94.
And that's what won it for him. You know, the judges told him, they're like, you know what? You both had good conditioning. You know, you both had good, but Kevin was bigger, and that's what made him win that show.
Yeah. So I tell you, I've got a lot more respect for Levroni's physique over the years. You know, I just saw another video of him I think it was on Instagram yesterday. I think it was from 97, one of the Grand Prix shows after the Olympia.
Right.
His posing was so good. He had that confidence on stage. His physique was unbelievable. And he was really, really a great bodybuilder. Really, I mean, if you look at the history of bodybuilding, you look through all the generations, he's one of the best.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Let me see if I can pull out that. I'm going to try pulling up the footage from. Oh, I don't know. I thought they were going to show some posing down here. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know if they have footage from 96 Arnold. I don't think I've ever seen that one. I'm sure it was on TV. That was the thing about all those shows back then. They were all on TV.
You're right. Yeah, they were on. What were they on? Like Wide World of Sports or something like that.
CBS Sports World or NBC Sports World. I mean,
this is. I think
that was the one also where Sean Ray got 5th. Yeah, there you go. Sean Ray usually didn't do anything except the Olympia, but he did.
Look at how big Levroni is there, standing there. He's enormous. Yeah, Sean was 5th. You could tell he's like all pissed off too.
You had Vince Taylor in it. You had Levroni.
Yeah.
I think Paul Dillett beat.
There's Vince.
Yeah. Paul Dillett got 3rd.
Yeah, Dillett was huge at that show, I remember.
Yeah. He's always huge.
If you looked at him, you would be like, how did this guy not win the show? You know,
right. Standing relaxed, he's the best
ever. Right? Standing relaxed. He was like Frankenstein.
But Flex looks great there too.
He does, but you can see Kevin is bigger than him, you know, a lot bigger than him.
Oh, yeah, he was a lot bigger.
I don't know if Kevin and Flex
had a rivalry that goes back to their amateur days.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if Kevin was ever that big again in any show.
Yeah. But Levroni beat Flex back at the Nationals when he won the Nationals. Flex was pissed off that year too that he lost.
Loss had to hurt Flex because it was so close that it really could have gone either way.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and it was a big difference in prize money too. And I know I know Flex probably was more upset about the prize money than the actual title, and I don't blame him.
Yeah, Flex was a good competitor. He hated to lose. So what was first place? 90 grand?
I think it was it? I think it must have been 100 grand because I know Mike Francois won 100 grand in '95.
Okay.
So this is the year after that.
Yeah.
And Flex was second to Francois the year before that, right?
Yeah. Because Flex had the car accident, I believe, in '94. Was it '94?
Yeah. And that was his comeback in '95.
Yeah, his comeback was '95, and then that's why Mike beat him because Flex really wasn't.
Look at Kevin's pecs. You can't even tell he tore his pec. Look at his
pecs
and delts and triceps.
Man, what a great physique! Incredible.
That was exciting for me because I was really right. I was there with him and everything like that. But it was.
Did you go to the Arnold that year, Dave?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I was helping him. But
yeah.
We had a little dispute because he kind of after he won, he disappeared. He never really came out and said thank you. And it took him 6 months. Actually, it was Lonnie Teeper who actually called him out and said, "I heard you didn't even thank Dave Palumbo, for helping you or something like that." And he called me up and he apologized actually. And we, since then we made up. He's over. Every time we talk about it, he always, re-apologizes, which he doesn't have to because
Yeah, I saw him on your show recently. He was very.
We're all, when you're in the midst of competing and everyone's around you and everyone wants to be a part of your thing, and you get caught up sometimes in the whole whole hype of the thing. Kevin was always a good guy though and had a good heart, and he always had people's backs. So I mean, but I can understand when you're at that level and everyone wants a piece of you, it's tough.
We should mention honorable award to Chris Cormier for taking second place 6 years in a row.
I know. How crazy is that?
6 years in a row.
It was 3 times to Jay, right? And then 4 times to Dexter?
It was from 2000 to 2005. So Flex, Ronnie, Jay, and Dexter.
And you know what? Arguably, Cormier could have won a few of those years,
Well, the one that Jay won, I think it was 2004. That was the worst. That was Jay's worst one. He was way off, and I think he would even admit it. And I think Cormier and Dexter both should have beat Jay that year.
Yeah, you think you threw him a bone that year? He was a little. I think Jay was flat that year, wasn't he?
Super flat. Yeah.
He was ripped, but he was really, 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 really flat.
Yeah, he didn't look good.
He was over depleted. Yeah, Chris. Thank God Chris would go out and party after the show because otherwise, he would be in his hotel crying. Otherwise, because he lost a lot of really close ones. I remember one year he did it, and we all went out. There was always those after parties they had at the Arnold, which was great.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I think I was coming. I had a really early flight the next morning, and I was up and getting a taxi, and Chris was just coming back from the taxi from the party. And he was getting out, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got to go to a photo shoot." He goes, "I'm going to shoot with MD with like Blackman was shooting him or something like that." And he hadn't slept the whole night. And those pictures were some of the best pictures I've ever seen of him. He was actually better than at the show because he had partied all night and he was totally dried out, depleted.
Yeah, it was all the dehydration from the alcohol.
Yeah. I said, "Chris, you should have looked like this for the show." He goes, "I know, I probably would have won."
Yeah.
Yeah, that had to hurt though, with not winning that show. At least
in the one year he beat Flex at the Ironman, and then Flex beat him at the Arnold a week later. So that had to be tough too.
Yeah, but you know what? By Chris's own admission, if you watch his documentary, he had been a little bit stricter on as far as cut back the partying a little bit prior to his competing and stuff like that. He probably would have won a lot more shows.
Yeah.
But he was like the Dennis Rodman of bodybuilding. That was his shtick. He needed that. It was like a stress release for him. And
right.
He never missed a workout at the gym, and he never missed he probably didn't miss any meals unless he was out, partying or something like that. But you can't. you can't have that nightlife and expect to be your absolute best. You know, Ronnie wasn't out doing that. You know that. And Flex wasn't out doing that. You know,
Oregon wasn't doing that either.
Nasser wasn't doing that. So, you know, he left the door open a little bit because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Of the modern era, the last 5 to 7 years or so, who would you say was the best Arnold champ?
Let's see. I really like Cedric when he won.
Yeah, he definitely had the best acceptance speech of all time.
Yeah, definitely. I thought he could have won a couple times. I loved his physique, man. I think he was the greatest, modern day bodybuilder because he had the mass, he had the structure, he had the posing, he had everything. He just wasn't hard enough. He didn't come in the condition the judges wanted, and he never would do well at the Olympia. And I thought he should have even had a couple more Arnolds than he did.
Well, you know what the problem was? He would only do things his own way. There was no. It was Cedric's way, or that's it. And so Chris Aceto helped him like most for most of his shows, but he only listened probably to 50% of what Chris said.
Right.
This was his posing routine here at the Arnold. I think 2017.
Well, he loved the old school bodybuilders. He's like me, and he had a lot of respect for them. He had a lot of respect for their routines. He, really idolized those guys, and you could tell it came through in his posing.
He had every tool you possibly needed to win at the highest level. And it's a shame he never won an Olympia, but he had a lot of. Look at him messing with Arnold here. He had a lot of. Look, he's not even touching Arnold's hair. Only he can get away with that.
Right.
And Arnold really liked Cedric. As a matter of fact, I believe, according to what Chris Aceto told me, Arnold invited Cedric to come out to California.
Really?
Yeah, and Cedric is the only person I know who declined. He's like, no, I don't want to go out there. He had a lot of anxiety. I don't know if that's why he didn't want to go out there, but he just like, I think it was too much for him, to be with Arnold alone.
Yeah.
But because Levrone went out there. Levrone told me in the interview that he went out. Arnold invited him out to the movie set there, and he spent the whole day with him.
End of days, right?
Yeah, and Arnold actually flew him out and put him up and everything like that. So, Arnold was definitely trying to help the bodybuilders of his, to have some advantages and give him, some schooling, so to speak, on how to make money and how to be successful. And this, I believe, was the highlight of Cedric's career. This was his Mr. Olympia when Arnold interviewed him after this show, but really Cedric interviewed Arnold, if you remember. He took over the interview.
That was great. There'll never be a better victory speech than that one.
No. And actually, in 2016, he actually beat Kai Greene.
Right.
If you remember that.
I was there.
And Kai won the posing round. That was the first year Arnold wanted them to score the posing round at the Arnold.
Yeah.
And had it just been the comparisons, Cedric won the show.
Right.
But Kai wound up winning because he won the posing round, which arguably you can say, even though Kai is the most entertaining up there, Cedric is an awesome poser too.
Yeah.
And Cedric took it with grace. He really did, because I would have been pretty mad. Imagine that you win the show, but you lose because Kai Greene had a more entertaining routine than you did.
Yeah. And I was at that show, and I thought Cedric should have won.
Yeah, these are the best 2 years that Cedric competed. And if he had brought this look to the Olympia, who knows what would have happened, Yeah,
I was hoping every year he would. I would have loved to have seen him beat Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just must have been an insecurity thing. Like you said, he must just not have believed in himself, which is hard to believe looking at his physique, that he wouldn't really have full confidence in himself. And he conducted himself great on stage,
Mm-hmm.
Posing was awesome. So I remember the first time I saw Cedric, I never saw him before in person. And I saw him at the first Arnold Classic he did. I think it was in 2013. And I was sitting in the back of the auditorium, and I just thought he blew everybody away with his size and his structure. And I know he was holding a little water that year. And I think he got like 5th or 6th. I mean, guys like Hidetada Yamagishi were beating him, and Johnny Jackson. And I think Dexter won that year. But I was like, are you kidding me, man? This guy is incredible. This guy should be winning the Olympia. And he did have a great career after that. But that was his first Arnold. And I just couldn't believe that they put him that low. I think they put him 5th or 6th. They said his tan wasn't right, and that I was sitting at the stage, and he looked hard enough for me, you know.
Yeah, was that the year he was 4th? I think
he
when
was
Roden was challenging.
No, this was the first year he did it in 2015.
Oh, okay. He was really good that year that Roden and the second and Wolf won too.
I wrote that one down. Yeah, that was a really good lineup.
That was a great. I mean, I've shown that footage, you know, of Roden versus Wolf. I mean, that's off the charts. You know that, and Cedric was really good at that show too.
Yeah, Cedric.
He was huge.
Yeah, he
just wasn't tight enough for that show.
That was 2014. That was 3 years before he actually did win it.
Yeah, he was. You could tell he had the potential to do great things at that point.
Yeah, I just thought he was a special person, man. I really wish he wouldn't have passed so early, because he was just, you know, more than just a bodybuilder. He was really, the way he communicated with audiences. I loved when he was at that Arnold seminar the next day. Some of the things he said to the audience, it was just incredible. Like, you talk about how when he was a kid and the things he used to idolize, and how he believed in his dreams, and he became this great bodybuilder, and, you know, he could relate to the average stuff, you know. He was just a really great person.
Was he the only Arnold Classic champion who's not alive right now?
Nasser.
Oh, Nasser, right. Yeah, okay, you're right. Sorry, I forgot Nasser. Nasser's win was pretty impressive too. What year was that? 1998?
99.
Oh, 99, excuse me, right. So the year after Ronnie won the Olympia, Nasser won that.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was such a great win for Nasser. I think that he really should have won the Arnold before that, and they kind of gave him, that was his Olympia that he never got, you know, so to speak.
Yeah.
He was huge, but he wasn't his hardest I'd seen. I think the best Nasser ever looked, to be honest with you, was probably 97 Olympia, when he should have beat Dorian that year, you know.
He was really good in 96 too, at the 96 Olympia.
Yeah, he was good at that. You're right.
But I think
97 was his Mr. Olympia that he never got.
Yeah. I think everybody agrees he should have beat Dorian that year.
Which is probably why they gave him, you know, the Olympia in 99. You know, I mean, why they gave him the Arnold in 99. I think. I really think that. Who else was in that show in 99 with him? Let me pull that up.
I don't think Flex. Yeah, Flex took off.
Levrone was second in that show, and Cormier was third. Jay was fourth.
Okay.
So, I think Levrone looked pretty good at that show too, but I can't remember.
I don't think he was as big though.
It could have been like one of Kevin's off years. What year did Kevin take off and try to do the music career?
Probably after 98.
I think it was that. Yeah, I think maybe right after this show. That might have been his last show.
Because I remember at the 96, 97, 98 Olympias, he was really thick and big.
Yeah.
And then after that, when he started doing the Olympia, like 2000, 2001, he still looked good, but he was much thinner. He was much smaller. His legs especially weren't as big.
Yeah, he had that knee injury that he really never talked about too much, but that was holding him back, I think. Because Kevin was, you know, you could say what you want about Kevin. He might not have trained in the off season, but when he started training, I've never seen anyone lift weights like him. He was really strong. I mean, I squatted with him, you know, 6 weeks out from his Arnold, and we were squatting, you know, 565 or something like that for reps or something like that. I mean,
wow,
he was doing it like it was nothing, you know.
Well, his bench was incredible.
Yeah, he was a 500-pound rep bench all day long.
Yeah, he did 4 plates like nothing.
Yeah, but you know that's not normal. You know, I mean, you don't see a lot of pros doing that kind of weight. I mean, and Kevin would push that shit around like it was nothing, and that's why he grew. He was a hyper responder, but if he didn't lift the heavy weights he lifted, he never would have put the size on that he did. Like he did.
Right.
He had density and thickness because of that.
He was a very unique bodybuilder, and his posing and his stage presence was incredible. It was like he had so much confidence when he got up there. I think that's why he's been an inspirational bodybuilder to a lot of people who look up to him. As you know, a lot of people pick Kevin as their best bodybuilder or their favorite bodybuilder, and I think it was because when he got up on stage, that rock star persona, and he acted like, you know, he was in charge. You know, I mean, there was no self-doubt with Kevin Levrone when he got up on stage. You know.
But you know what? He said he didn't practice. He didn't prepare routines. He would just pose to the music. I don't know if he's lying about that, but I don't see why he would lie about it. He said he didn't prepare routines. He would just wing it.
He knew what poses he looked good in. He was a good poser. He knew how to flow.
Right.
And he picked good music too. He always had really good music.
Yeah, I choose not to believe that that's the truth because I can't believe that anyone. I don't want to believe that anyone is that good. Is that natural?
Yeah.
Anyone who could improvise to music that well, it just makes me feel like a retard because I had to practice my routine 6,000 times, for it to be perfect,
Right. Well, you figure all the shows he did and all the guest posings, I'm sure he got good at it,
Yeah, I know, but still, it's nerve-wracking when you don't really know what you're going to do unless you're so confident in yourself that you can just. Even Ty Greene planned out every single pose he was going to do prior to doing it.
Right. I think he was so cool. I think he just didn't give a shit. He got up there and he just did what he had to do.
Nope. Yep. 100%. Well, the Arnold Classic this coming weekend is going to be super exciting. We're going to have a new champ crowned. Will Nick Walker make it too? Will Ramy win his first Arnold Classic USA? That's another one that a lot of people don't realize. Ramy never won the Arnold USA. I think he won Brazil, right?
Yeah.
And did he win? I think he won the Arnold in Europe. Didn't he win the year?
Maybe, yeah. And I think didn't he win it? No, he didn't win it, but wasn't he in it the year he won?
Yeah, he was third. Remember, he was off.
Vonak won this year.
Yeah. We'll see. It's a risky thing, but I don't think Ramy cares. Ramy just wants to get it back on stage. And sometimes when you lose and you don't look your best, it's a very hard thing to hold on to for an entire year till the next year.
Yeah.
I know with Ronnie, it just made him train harder, but but Ramy obviously wants to get back on stage. So
yeah.
Look, the more guys in the show, the more exciting it is for us, the press guys, to cover it. And John Hansen will be joining King Kamali, me, probably Lee Priest for a official post-game show. So right after the Friday night pre-judging, this year Arnold Classic will be Friday night. After the pre-judging, we'll go right to a live stream on RXMuscle's YouTube channel of us analyzing the show and what went on. So you're not going to want to miss that at all. John, thanks for joining us again today for another edition of the History of Bodybuilding.
You're welcome, Dave. It's always a pleasure.
We'll see you guys next time.